What actually happens if you do wall sits 3 times a week? No equipment, no complicated technique. You simply put your back against a wall, lower yourself into position, and stay there. It looks almost too simple to count as serious exercise. But wall sits are a form of isometric training where your muscles produce force without your joints continuously moving. And if you're a beginner, doing them consistently 3 times a week can be a surprisingly useful way to start building lower body strength and endurance. There's even some interesting research on isometric training and blood pressure. But before you start holding wall sits for as long as humanly possible, let's look at what they actually do and what they don't. The moment you lower yourself into a wall sit, your quadriceps have to work continuously to keep you from sliding down the wall. Your glutes and other muscles around your hips and legs also contribute to maintaining the position. Unlike a normal squat, you're not repeatedly lowering and standing, you're holding. That's why your thighs can start burning surprisingly quickly. Your muscles are producing force continuously, while fatigue gradually builds. For a beginner, that's one of the attractions. There's very little movement to coordinate, no equipment to control, and you can adjust the difficulty simply by changing your position or how long you hold it. The first adaptation you'll probably notice isn't suddenly bigger legs. It's that you can hold the position longer. Maybe 20 seconds initially feels terrible. After several weeks, that same 20 seconds may feel much more manageable. That's your muscular endurance improving. Your nervous system and muscles are becoming better at producing and sustaining force in that particular position. You may also build some strength, especially if you're previously untrained. But there's an important limitation. Isometric strength gains tend to be somewhat specific to the joint angles you train. So becoming excellent at holding one wall sit position doesn't automatically make you strong through every part of a squat. That's one reason I see wall sits as a useful exercise, not a replacement for all lower body movement. This is where wall sits often get oversold. You'll sometimes hear that wall sits are either fantastic for everyone's knees or terrible for everyone's knees. Neither statement is particularly useful. Wall sits allow you to load the quadriceps without repeatedly bending and straightening the knee. That can make them an accessible strengthening option for some people. But your knee position changes the difficulty. You do not need to immediately drop until your thighs are perfectly parallel to the floor. A beginner can start higher up the wall with a shallower knee bend. That reduces the difficulty considerably. Then, as you become stronger and the position feels comfortable, you can gradually work lower. If a wall sit produces sharp or persistent knee pain, however, don't assume pain is something you need to push through. Change the position, reduce the difficulty, or stop. Now here's where wall sits become particularly interesting. Researchers have studied isometric exercise as a potential way to improve resting blood pressure, and wall squats have been included in that research. One home-based study had participants perform wall squat training 3 times per week for 4 weeks. Resting systolic and diastolic blood pressure decreased after the training period. Larger reviews of isometric resistance training have also found reductions in resting blood pressure. That's genuinely interesting. But there's an important distinction. The research protocols were structured and often considerably more demanding than a casual beginner wall sit. For example, the 4-week home study used 4 2-minute wall squat bouts with 2 minutes of recovery, and the exercise intensity was individually prescribed, so I'm not suggesting that doing a couple of 20-second wall sits automatically lowers your blood pressure. Think of the cardiovascular research as an interesting additional finding about structured isometric training, not a promise attached to every wall sit. Now let's remove some of the hype. Wall sits alone won't give you a complete leg workout. They don't train your legs through a large range of motion. They don't challenge balance very much because the wall supports you. They don't train hip hinging. And they aren't a substitute for walking, cardiovascular exercise, squats, lunges, or other lower body movements. They're also not some secret belly fat exercise. The burning sensation in your thighs doesn't mean you're specifically burning fat from your legs. What wall sits do particularly well is much simpler. They give you an accessible way to challenge your lower body muscles using nothing except your body and a wall. For beginners, that's already useful. At the end of 4 weeks, don't look in the mirror for your result. Go back and repeat your week 1 wall sit. Same position, Same 20 seconds. And notice how it feels. If those 20 seconds that once had your thighs screaming now feel controlled, that's progress. Not because the exercise changed, you did. From there, you have choices. Hold longer. Add another set. Progress to a harder leg exercise. Or simply keep wall sits as one part of a bigger training routine. The goal was never to become world-class at sitting against a wall. It was to give your body a challenge, adapt to it, and then move forward. That's progressive training in its simplest form. Try the 4-week plan, and if you do, come back and tell me what happened to your week 1 wall sit. Train smarter, not harder. Thanks for watching.